Hello everyone, welcome back to another video with Community of Support. I'm Deborah. I'm a first-year medical student at Dalhousie University in Halifax, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the online interview. If you're new to the channel, you might not have seen, but we actually have a more general interview video that was posted a few weeks ago. So if you need just general interview tips on how to ace the interview, make sure you stick around after this video. It will be linked, or check out our channel and make sure you subscribe for more great content. These tips can apply to anyone. They can apply to people who are applying medical school, but they can also be for people who are interviewing for jobs, people who are interviewing for master's programs. I've actually done all of these, and I will say that these are the same tips I use throughout my online interviewing experience. With the COVID-19 pandemic last year, there was a whole scrambling of med schools to figure out what to do and how to make sure that their interviews can still go on, since this all happened in the middle of interview season. One of the schools I was interviewing at, we had interviews the next day when it was declared a pandemic, and so they really had to scramble to pull it off, and they had to basically change everything. People were getting ready to fly out. Like, I was already literally there, and everything had shut down. This time, I think that a lot of the schools have really got it down this time, or at least they've had a year to really plan out how they want it to go. I would expect less issues, but who knows, right? This is all unprecedented territory. So the first tip I'm going to give you is to find a quiet place. And I feel like that goes without saying, but it's so important to make sure that you find a place that is completely quiet, that your roommates know. Like, if you have roommates, make sure that they know that you are doing this. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors to keep it down. This is not the time to worry about being polite to anyone. I mean, don't be rude. Try to be as nice as you can and let people know why this is so important and why it's important that they're quiet. For my interviews, I literally told everybody around me to stay in their rooms for the next 2 hours. They knew ahead of time, and they knew on the day of it was time to stay in your room and do not step out for any reason. And of course I said it nicer than that, but that really was the case, and it really helped because you don't have to worry about random noise distracting you. Next thing I'm going to say is your camera position. I don't think anyone's going to get faulted for a camera position that's not the best. But I think these little things just really help make your day run smoother, and it helps you communicate a little better, and it helps you present yourself in a more composed manner. So for me, the advice that I got was to make sure that your camera is always at eye level or above, and to make sure that you have a good amount of your upper body showing. So if you'll notice in most of my videos, I always try to have a good part of my upper body. I like to stop right about here sometimes, or even lower, or no, probably not lower. I think this is a pretty good amount. And of course I'm sitting on my couch right now, but I usually wouldn't be. I'd be sitting upright at a desk, sitting upright. So you do whatever you can to really get that level, whether you're stacking books. I would stack books, boxes, just all kinds of things until I had the perfect level. No one can see what's behind the camera. Also, on that note, make sure you have good lighting. So a really good thing to do is to sit in front of a window sometimes, or sometimes beside the window. You have to be really careful because you don't want to have way too much lighting where you can't even see your face, but you don't want to have too little lighting where they can't make out your facial expressions, where it just looks blurry and gross. And again, I don't think anyone's gonna get faulted explicitly for their camera quality, but it's just always good to put your best foot forward, and that means good lighting, good camera position. Push your laptop a few feet away from you so that you have a good amount of room. You don't want to be the only thing in the camera. You want to kind of have a little bit of a window. You want to have a little bit of a window around yourself. The next thing I would say is your composure. So first of all, I think one of the good things about online interviews, and this might differ depending on what school you're interviewing with, but a lot of the online interviews have a pre-recording component, or you might be able to let yourself into the room at the right time. So I think that kind of gives you a little bit more power. So you're able to take 20 seconds, 10 seconds to just breathe. I remember during the MMI, you don't have that time usually in person. So when it's online, I found that I had the opportunity to breathe even between questions sometimes, and that was so helpful. So before it starts, each question, if you have the opportunity, take a second, breathe, calm your nerves. The other thing that I'll point out, this is a tip that I've gotten a few times, and I'm not sure how valid it is, but I will say I've tried to notice it in other people, and it seems to make sense. I've heard that you should look down, not up when you think. So a lot of us, when we're trying to think of our answer, or when we're talking through something, we have a tendency to look up and just like this, and it has, supposedly it can make you look like you're searching for answers, like you don't know what you want to say. But on the other hand, you can look down when you speak, maybe not like down, but like, just kind of gaze down while you speak, and it makes you look pensive, or so I've been told, and so I've practiced. No one is going to be faulted. No one's going to say she looked up, therefore she's dumb and she can't get into med school. No, I don't think that's it. So if you're gazing down, I can also give you the opportunity to look at your notes. So different schools might have different rules, but if you're allowed to make notes for each question, looking down can also be a sly way of just gazing at your notes and coming back up. I'm not sure how that looked, but there is a way to do it naturally, and as you practice, it will become more natural. I shot this video yesterday, but I just remembered that I forgot to include a really important tip that I was given when I was interviewing, which is your voice inflection. And this goes under composure as well, but I just remember being told that if you're a very quiet person, like I happen to be, you have to put a lot more life into your voice, because when you're online, what happens is you lose a lot of the communication that we have through our body language, which we don't even notice that we're doing most of the time. But when you're online, it's really hard to see all the little traits that we don't realize we're communicating. So a good way to address that is by making sure that your voice is not monotonous, and is showing your expressions, is showing your emotion. And if you listen to me right now, I'm probably speaking a lot more monotonous than I did in the other clips. And if you pay attention to the difference, it's just gonna sound, the other clips are probably going to sound just a lot more inviting and a lot more interesting to listen to. So that's just one really important tip I didn't want to let it go without mentioning. Now, I think I said this in the previous video as well. Staying calm is such a big part of the interview, and we can really help elevate your answer if you're able to communicate it well, and you'll be able to communicate it as well as possible if you're calm. But that's not actually the point of what I'm trying to say this time. This time I'm trying to point out what we all know about technology, which is that it sucks. Okay, I mean, hey, I love technology as much as the next girl, but technology sucks, and I think that's fair. But we can understand that technology sucks, and we can be okay with that. And I think that being okay with the fact that technology might mess you up no matter how hard you try to prevent it. So the only thing you can do in a situation where something like that happens to you is to be calm. Because what's going to happen is you're probably going to figure it out. You're likely going to get a chance to continue, and you don't want to be frazzled when that happens, because the person who's watching your video isn't going to know that your Wi-Fi cut out 2 seconds ago. All they're going to know is that this person can't communicate right now, and that was the most important part. So again, technology sucks. Know that and be calm. I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all an example, okay? So when I was interviewing for a master's program a few years ago, I was using Zoom, and yes, this was like 2 years before COVID, so like I said, OG Zoom, okay? Anyways, I was using Zoom for an interview, and it was my first time using Zoom. I had downloaded it, I had tested it, everything was good. I go to log in, and I had to wait in the waiting room for a little bit, so I was just chilling. The person lets me into the waiting room. There's 2 people all on their separate computers, and I look at the screen, and I'm not there. Like, I'm just not, I'm not there. Like, on the screen is this just random pile of like chairs stacked on each other with like just a weird bookshelf behind it, and then I look up and I realize that that's the view in front of me. I had one of those Surface Pros, it had a front camera and a back camera, and so the back camera had come on instead of the front camera, and that was my introduction to that. Behind the camera was everything that I had tried to get out of the way, so I stacked all the chairs, I threw sweaters, everything was just gross back there, and that's the first thing they saw. For the first like 2 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. Can you see me? You can't see me. Oh, what's going on? And then eventually I figured it out and everyone's like, oh, hey. And it was actually kind of an icebreaker. It made the interview just flow so much easier. So what should you take from this lesson? One, take from this lesson that I am a mess. And so if you are a mess, you will still get through this, because I have gotten through so many online interviews being the mess that I am. The second thing that you should also get out of that is that you'll be okay if something happens. Next thing I'm gonna say is to be prepared. Each school has their own format of interview, and they all differ in a way or another. Like I said, they've all had a year to figure out just the best possible way. And even back when COVID first struck, the schools that I interviewed at had completely different methods of dealing with it. So even now that they've had time, they might still have completely different methods. It's so important that you know the different methods and how you're expected to interview. And like I mentioned before, some schools might actually allow you to write notes and things like that. So you want to know if you're allowed to write notes and if that's something that you would like to do. So don't make the first time you ever scribble notes before a question be on the interview day. Make sure that you've practiced this. The last thing that I'm gonna say, I said in the previous video too, is practice, practice, practice. This time we're talking about the online interview, and so we're gonna focus on that. Take all the advice from this video, integrate them, or put that into your practice. It was always important to record yourself, but it's especially important now that everything's online, because what you see in that camera is what you're going to be presenting. And I think that's all. Again, the community of support is such a great resource for people who are underrepresented in medicine. So we are here for you, and thanks for watching.